This is The Drive with Dale Lolley and Matt Williamson on your 24/7 home of the black and gold. SNR, Steelers Nation Radio.
And welcome to a 3-0 Monday here in Pittsburgh. The Steelers getting off to a 3-0 start with a 20-10 beatdown of the Los Angeles Chargers on Sunday. I want to take partial credit for that, Matt, because I said...
Oh, were you out there blocking and tackling?
Yes, that's exactly what happened. I said, this was actually in my OR, the column that I do in the Observer Reporter every Sunday, picking the games. I said, if Justin Herbert plays, 16-13. If Herbert doesn't play, 20-10.
All right.
I get partial credit for that because he played, but he didn't finish.
Right. And they could have used him at the end.
Oh,
I thought he played quite well, to be honest.
He was playing really well.
He was sharp mentally, and yeah.
I actually said to somebody at halftime, I'm like, I think it might have been Jerry Dulac sitting beside me, and I said, he had looked really good in the first half. I said, let's see what it's like in the second half when all the adrenaline and everything starts to wear off a little bit.
And you knew he was beating up on it, and it was highly questionable all week, and I'm sure the thing blew up.
They couldn't run the football.
No.
That was, the Chargers, much like the Steelers, are built to run the football. But that was the one thing that we talked about last week, that you know Herbert's a good quarterback.
No question.
And they had the advantage at quarterback because of him.
100%. And Harbaugh hadn't really needed to use him to this point of the season, so his numbers were low. Not that Tomlin was shocked at what Herbert was capable of. But even like the touchdown pass was a blown coverage, but he was so sharp that he saw it now.
He saw it immediately and just let it fly, and they had no time to react.
As much space as Minka covers, most quarterbacks, this thing was out like a laser, and there's no defense for that. So he played great, but I don't think the Steelers won Okay, let's get this out of the way.
They would have won the game regardless.
It was trending that way. Now, I'm sure there's some Charger fans going, sure would have been nice to have Bosa, Slater, Alt, and Herbert for the whole game. Alt went out very late. But, I mean, they might be the four guys you pick that you least want to lose.
Yeah.
But the game was trending that way anyway.
The Steelers were beating them up physically.
Yes.
And that's why some of those guys left the game.
That too. Yeah, 100%.
They were the more physical team at the line of scrimmage. Although the Chargers defense was game. I'll give them more credit than what I did.
They were better than I thought.
Yeah.
They were flat out better than I thought.
Their linebackers were just attacking the line of scrimmage, and they're saying, okay, we're going to make Justin Fields beat us throwing the football. We're not going to let him run the ball.
Yep.
And we're not going to let the Steelers run the ball.
And I bet Harbaugh turns Derwin James back into a Pro Bowler too. He was flying around the field and
sometimes too much.
And
that hurt them on that one drive.
Well,
he had a personal foul. Mack had a personal foul. Then they had something else. They had a third penalty on that drive.
The third quarter defensive penalty fest that the Chargers were going through.
Yeah,
there was like a three series stretch or 2 series stretch where every other play their defense was taking a penalty.
Yeah, and two of them were the personal fouls to James and Mack, who were their two best defensive guys on the field. You can't do that in that situation.
100%. So Steelers didn't run the ball on paper great in the first half either. Obviously both game plans were run the football, take away the run. But I thought that they were the more physical running game, and I had more faith. Even in one of my halftime notes, where I have more faith that the Steeler run game will pop in the second half than I do the Chargers will.
And that's what happened.
And
they just kept pounding away, and finally Harris starts breaking off some longer runs, and they put Patterson in there, and he runs like I don't know.
Yeah.
I would not want to tackle him.
No, he's such an odd runner because it's all knees and high. And
high knees, like you're going to take
one
right in the chin.
Right, almost like an Eddie George. In a way,
and he's 6'2". I mean, he's as big as Eddie George.
Right.
But the end result was
over before
all Steelers. Yeah.
I mean, 254 yards to -5.
Yeah.
You don't see that very often.
That was as dominant a performance offensively and defensively, even though the score didn't necessarily.
No.
I mean,
they kneeled on the one to end the game.
Yeah, they could have punched one in there. If Najee falls 2 inches farther in, he's in the end zone, and it's 27-10, and they outscored him. They outscored him by what would have been 24-0 or whatever, 20-0 in the second half.
It's no time to complain, but I do dislike hearing things on Monday after a game like that, they should have scored more. Like they knew that the Chargers were dead in the water.
Yeah.
And they were still aggressive enough. I mean, they ran a lot of plays in the second half and were doing whatever they wanted. There's no reason to do flea flicker double reverses just to get the 30 points.
No, that whole got to score 30 points thing. That was a Todd Haley, Ben Roethlisberger thing back in like 2015
AB and Lev Bell
when they needed to do that
right,
when the defense wasn't as good as it is now.
Right, and the league was different then too. There was a lot easier to come up with explosive plays. It's just a different world. But no, I thought the offense, particularly Fields, was clearly the best it's been all year. Yeah, and that Chargers D was better than I thought. I sold them short.
No, he played well and did what they needed to do. Forced a couple of balls, but you have to do that at times. Especially if everything's on your plate.
Oh yeah, right. And then teams know now. Well, in week 1, so much of it was roll outside the numbers, avoid those 2 safeties.
Yeah,
really, really good by the way, and have been great.
By the way, did you watch the Falcons and Chiefs last night?
Right. I didn't realize Justin Simmons has picked off Mahomes more than anyone in Mahomes' history. That's his 6th one, and Bates is awesome. But that was week 1, and I don't know if it took the Falcons by surprise, but you put that on tape, teams aren't going to let you roll Fields gently to his right or to the left, and if there's nothing open outside the numbers, run. They kept him in the pocket, and he won doing quarterback things from the pocket way better than I've ever seen him do, and it was very impressive to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Steelers' defense, that was just since the year 2000, there have been 7 instances where a team has held another team to minus yardage in the second half of a game. 7 times since 2000.
And that's 30 minutes of football.
The Steelers have done it twice. The first one came in 2001 against Detroit when they held them to minus 7 yards. Yesterday was the 5th best. Looking at this, it was Buffalo against the Jets in 2022, held them to minus 16 yards.
Wow.
Number 2 is in 2015, Denver, which we know that was a really good defense. By the way, Buffalo led in 2022 as the number 1 defense in the league. Denver in 2015 was the number 1 defense in the league. They rode that to a Super Bowl with the ghost of Peyton Manning. They held Oakland to minus 12 yards and a half.
Minus 12.
In the first half, too. That was
minus in general. Unless at 50 is crazy.
Yeah. The Steelers in 2001 against Detroit was the 3rd best output, minus 7. 4 was the Rams against Washington in 2020, minus 6 yards, and then you had the Steelers in Sunday's game, minus 5 yards in the second half of that game. The Steelers also have another one where they held a team to 0 yards, that against Carolina in 2002. So they show up quite often on this list of the top defensive
That's not
performances.
surprising, yeah. And while you're looking, I wanted to double-check this one, too. So the Steelers are the first team in the last 20 years and only the 8th since 1970 to allow 300 or fewer yards and 10 fewer points in each of their first 3 games.
Did you get that from my 10 thoughts?
I don't know. Somebody tweeted it at me, which probably stole it from
They probably stole it from my 10 thoughts, yeah.
we all pillage from one another. I dig up a lot of stats. They're not all my own.
I also texted you last night. This game was the first time since 2020 the Steelers lost the turnover battle and won the football game.
That's encouraging.
It shows you how well the defense is, and the offense as well can overcome losing the turnover battle.
We can lose one. It's not like I threw a pick, game's over.
Now, you can't lose 3. You can't lose at 3-0, but you lost at 1-0.
And you still won handily.
And you still won the game.
Handily.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, but at least they blocked the kick, and their field goal kicker got hurt.
Because the Steelers' defense didn't have a turnover in that game.
Right. And the second half, it didn't matter at all.
Yeah.
And I didn't even think that was a bad turnover by Fields. He got a little unlucky. It wasn't a perfect pass, but,
Yeah. So, I mean, you look at
changing.
Everybody said, well, the Steelers, they have to turn the other team over. They can't win. Well, they didn't do that.
No, they didn't do that. I mean, it's going to be obviously part of the formula. That doesn't mean just throw it around the yard 60 times out of empty. But the fact that they can overcome it, their time of possession was great.
It was 20-10 in the second half.
Time of possession.
Yeah. They had 2/3 of the time of possession in the second half. Like, it was extreme.
And that helps the defense so much. I mean, it's such common knowledge that the best way to play good defense is play less defense.
Yeah.
I saw this today. Watts played 88% of the snaps.
Because they're only out there.
Because he's not getting tired, right? I mean,
people are wondering, why isn't DeMarvin Leal playing more? Well, he's been practicing at outside linebacker because with Moon on IR, he hasn't been working at defensive tackle. He's been the second team outside linebacker.
So he's number 4.
Those guys are never coming off the field.
Right, because they're not getting tired, and they're productive, and
nobody's getting long, sustained drives on them.
So in the meantime, if Highsmith's going to miss time, we'll figure that out. I don't know any answers on that. The rotation of Herbig, Leal, and Watt should be good.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you're not going to ask Herbig to play every snap.
I mean, so this week Leal probably gets 15 snaps out there because...
And he's a different type than Herbig.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's a banger against big tackles and things. You know?
Yeah.
No, they're in a really good spot defensively in particular.
It's this defensively, they are playing better than any defense in the league.
Yeah. The only one that's close is Minnesota, which, I mean, I've been saying the Steelers' D is the best in the league now for a week or two. That Vikes one's hard to play against, but I would definitely take the Steelers, and they have better personnel, too.
And even Brian Flores, who's their defensive coordinator now, he spent a year in this system, and I wonder how much of what he learned, what he incorporated into that Minnesota defense that he learned here.
Oh, I'm sure.
Just some little, it may not be a lot.
Might not be a lot.
It may just be some tweaks here and there, but...
I bet somebody in the Steelers system learned something from Flores too.
Right.
You know, associate yourself with great people at what you do too, and learn from one another.
But you also have, and this is the thing about this defense that really struck me yesterday. I don't care how you want to play. You want to put a bunch of wide receivers on the field.
Mm-hmm.
They can work. They can work against that.
I agree.
You want to put. You want to go heavy and try to run the football. They got an answer for that.
Mm-hmm.
This is what they didn't have in some previous seasons when they had, okay, you're gonna do this. Let you think back to 2017 when they were how do we beat the Patriots?
Oh, right.
Well, we got to play a lot of man on the back end, and we got to we got to get lighter coverage guys at linebacker, to be able to combat that. Well, then the Jaguars come in and run the ball down their throat,
and they're just big and physical and don't play that way, right? And
this team can do that.
100%.
This team can go in against the Cincinnati Bengals, who we're going to see tonight, and they want to go 3 wide and go 11 personnel and try to throw the ball all over the yard. Fine, have at it.
Yeah, it's great that they're playing so much more nickel. It's something we've talked about a lot. But their dime package isn't bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Assuming Trice is healthy and Jackson's fine and they got all their dudes, they can throw 6 defensive backs out there that can hang. There's no doubt in my mind. I thought Beanie Bishop played his best game, too. I mean, he was a concern for me. And so this is more up your alley than mine, but from what I saw, and I don't remember exactly what the context was, along those lines, somebody asked Coach Tomlin about, I think it was an offensive player, and he's like, we just like guys that can do a lot. And I think that very much applies to the defense. Elliott's a great example. We don't just bring guys in here that can only play one role.
Yeah.
That can help us beat the Ravens or whatever.
Well, you saw it with Cordero Patterson yesterday. They lose Van Jefferson in that game.
Right.
Cordero Patterson splitting out wide as a wide receiver.
I think that's who they actually asked
Late
about.
in the game, he's running the clock out with Najee Harris.
I mean, even a Scotty Miller, he's emergency holder / it can do a lot of stuff for you. So
I thought Scotty Miller
he's useful.
He made the biggest play in the first half for their offense. I talked to him about it. He was tackled short of the sticks on their touchdown drive.
Yeah.
On 3rd down.
Okay.
If he gets tackled there, they're kicking a field goal. It's 10-3 at the half. It's a different feeling.
It's a different feel, yeah.
He breaks a tackle on Asante Samuel, who is their best cornerback.
He's a good player, yeah.
And breaks a tackle and gets 20 yards on that. Huge play.
100%. And by no means, folks, am I implying that Austin and Miller are Ayuk and Devontae Adams turned into one.
Although Ayuk is doing nothing.
Yeah, he looks really slow. I mean, I'm wondering about Jamar Chase tonight, too. Some of these guys that sat out aren't playing well early in the season. But they're chipping in. You know what I mean? Miller and Austin are useful pieces. They're not just, oh, man. I'm not picking on Allen Robinson, but or Gunner. There's times that they've had to throw out some receivers the last couple of years for meaningful snaps that aren't really helping the team in the passing game.
No, I'm with you. Yeah. So the Steelers now at 3-0. Teams that start 3-0 since the year 2000, 75.2% chance of making the playoffs.
Yeah.
51.5% chance of winning your division. It's pretty significant.
Pretty significant.
Especially considering the rest of the division, regardless of what Cincinnati does tonight.
Right. At best, they're all one win.
Well, yeah.
Best.
1 and 2 put you with a 25.1% chance to make the playoffs and a 12.5% chance to win the division.
Let's go down that road for a second, and we'll talk about more this week. It is very, very early to dig a grave for any team.
Yeah.
The Browns look shot.
They're done.
Miami looks shot. I mean, Team Jacksonville after tonight, we might be like,
could be shot.
Should be shot.
Yeah. You go 0-3, you've got 4 teams out of 162.
Yeah.
Since 2000 have made the playoffs. That's 2.5%.
We might get together next Monday and be like, the Colts are shot. And all of a sudden, New England's
the
not
field
going,
is
the
clearing
Raiders
out.
aren't going,
Yeah,
Denver's
Titans.
not going, Titans aren't going. 7 spots becomes very feasible. And I was just on Mark Madden's show, and he asked me, the Steelers the favorite to win the North. I'm like, that's a tough question. But if I have 3 wins now, I bet they win 3 or 4 in the division. You'd have to fall on your face 10 times to not be the leader in the clubhouse.
Yeah.
That ain't happening.
No, I mean, you still have Washington. That's the other thing about this early part of the season when you look at who the other teams have lost to.
Yeah.
The Browns just lost to the Giants yesterday.
Right, badly.
At home.
Yeah.
The Ravens.
Well, Dallas are next. They got this. They can't stop the run to save their life either.
No, the Ravens lost to the Raiders.
Yeah.
At home.
The
Bengals lost to the Patriots at home.
Yeah.
Last year, those were the teams the Steelers lost to. This team isn't losing to those teams.
I don't think so either.
The defense is too damn good.
Yeah. I mean, they have an O-line and they have a defense that should raise
those
all
things
ships.
travel.
They travel.
And you still have, of those teams I just mentioned, the Steelers don't play the Patriots this year, but they play the Giants.
Yeah.
Here.
Washington's
They
bad.
play Washington. Yeah. They play the Raiders. I mean, they still have those games on the schedule. Now, you could trip up and lose one of those games for sure.
They could lose to the Colts.
It's the NFL team. Yeah, it's the NFL. You can lose to anybody. But the thing to me about it is that those teams—
they're not going to win all the ones they, quote, should win.
Yeah.
That's not how the league works.
Those teams lost those games at home.
Yeah.
And, when you think about last season, why didn't the Steelers win the division? Well, they lost to the Cardinals and the Patriots at home.
Yeah.
If they win those 2 games, they win the division.
They win the division, let alone more than that, right? And you're hosting a playoff game.
Yeah.
And see how your chips lay.
So don't miss those layups, which the other teams already have done, and you win the division.
Yeah. And Mark's follow-up question, he's like, when's the next time you'll pick the Steelers to lose? I'm like, of course this is highly subject to change.
Yeah.
But if they
TJ Watt healthy,
right. But if they played today, I'm picking them to beat the Colts. I'm picking them to beat Dallas. I'm picking them to beat the Jets and the Giants.
Yeah.
I mean, very subject to change.
Right.
Rodgers might turn into the MVP and lighten the league
Tell
up.
me who's available
right.
for those games.
But if they played today, I would pick them to win their next 4. Now, I'm not predicting they go 7-0, but if they're 6-1, they're going to the playoffs, and they're probably going to win the division.
Yeah.
That's
how
they're not going to go 0-6 in their AFC North games.
No.
There's no way.
They've been history tells us that's not going to happen.
Right.
I mean, they've just been too good.
Looks.
Yeah. They've won 7 of the last 8 against the Ravens.
Yeah.
They've
How would Cleveland deal with the Steelers pass rush right now?
They might go through 4 quarterbacks just in that game.
Yeah, they're in a bad spot.
They are awful.
Yep.
Yeah. So, anyways, let's get to a break. We're overdue for that. He is Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. When we come back, we'll be joined by the voice of the Steelers, Rob King. And we are back. I'm Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson, and we're joined on the phone line now by the voice of the Steelers, Rob King. How you doing, Kinger?
I'm doing well, Dale. Matt, how you guys doing?
Swell. 3-0.
Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. Beautiful day in the Berg. Let's go.
It's a pretty good deal to be 3-0. What, 26, 27 other teams would love to be able to say that. So, yeah, good spot for the Steelers to be in for sure.
Absolutely. Rob, that game yesterday to me was it was very much, especially early on, a war of attrition. And then the Chargers go down and score, and Herbert starts warming up a little bit, and I'm like, can the Steelers keep up with them? And then Fields goes down and leads a touchdown drive right after that. How did you see that first half yesterday?
Yeah, it was a great response by the Steelers, and it really didn't feel like either team had established what they came into the game to establish, which was running the football. When the Steelers got the lead, they were able to put it away late. I wonder what would have happened, had the Chargers gotten the lead. They certainly would have been trying to do the same thing. But the Steelers made the big plays. The defense, negative -5 yards in the second half. But, as they went into the break, it just felt like neither team had really gotten going what they wanted to get going. And yet neither team had totally abandoned that either. So, trying to land some, I use the boxing analogy because Mike Tomlin did in the pregame show, landing body blows to try to soften up the opponent. I think the Steelers were able to do that. And, yeah, it was one big play by Herbert on what appeared to be a broken coverage. It looked like the identical play that Atlanta ran last night for a touchdown. It was sort of a fake to the, fake screen out to the left and then hit the guy in a quick, out and up pattern. So, they got fooled by one play, but other than that, it was kind of an even first half with each quarterback doing what they needed to do, but nothing really explosive happening down the field.
So you guys, Rob, were at the game. I was watching on TV, as I always do, and you guys have more of an all-22 vantage point than I did. And today I was able to watch some all-22 of the offense, and I was blown away by Fields manipulating defenses, throwing with anticipation and timing. A totally different player than he was in Chicago. Is that something you saw yesterday?
Yeah, I think what he has been able to do is, and I saw some of the subtleties, I think, that you're talking about. Just,
looking off a safety here and there and things like that.
Freeze that single high safety just for a moment, to the left of center because you're coming back to the right of center. And that makes all the difference in the world between a completion, an incompletion, and an interception, Mm-hmm. If you can do those little quarterback-y type of things, but then also, with that comes the need to deliver the ball on time and accurately. And I thought Justin Fields did both, delivered the ball on time and accurately throughout the course of the game.
Yeah, and for a lot of that game, Rob, the Steelers really didn't start running the ball well until late in that game. So a lot of that early was really on Fields' back.
Yeah, the Chargers were clearly, they showed some cover two, which you love to run against. And it looked to me, and again, calling the game, I'm more ball-centric than all 22-centric,
Mm-hmm. But at the snap of the ball, everybody was coming downhill.
Yeah, everyone's coming downhill, and they rotated from some cover two looks into some cover three looks. And for newer football fans, that means 3 guys covering the back end of the field, so 8 guys up toward the line of scrimmage, whereas a cover 2 has your 2 deep safeties, the cornerbacks playing off. So only 7 really going against the run and 4 guarding against the pass, to kind of put that in simple terms. I know the guys listening to your show, the fans usually are far more advanced than that. But
we coach them up pretty well.
Yeah, I know you do. So it just felt like, they were rotating into a lot of those things and trying to stop the Steelers' run. This game, it seemed pretty simple. Run the ball, stop the run, don't turn it over, let your edge guys in a matchup of elite edge guys on both teams, let your edge guys be the ones who made the difference. Well, as the game wore on, the Steelers stopped the run. Chargers stopped the run early, but as the game wore on, the Steelers were able to run the ball. The only thing the Steelers didn't do out of those 4 things that I thought were pretty simple keys to the game, and you never know, Fields and Herbert had to do their part, certainly. And then Fields, throughout the course of the game, was able to make some big plays. The one thing the Steelers didn't do was win the turnover battle, and it's the first time in, I think they've been 0-15-1 in the last 16 games in which they lost the turnover battle.
They hadn't won one since 2000, Rob. They were 0-18-1. So
0-18-1. I didn't mean to short shrift the great statistic. Yeah, that's an even better statistic. So I think that it was mission accomplished with most things except for the 1 turnover, and that was enough to get them the win.
So, Rob, you and I and Wolf were talking on a different venue about Najee Harris and the attitude and how in some ways he's becoming the face of the offense. His stats might not blow you away, but there's a lot more that he brings to the table than just that. Yeah,
I think he does, Matt. And Dale, I think there's an intangible effect that he has on the game. That will, that want to, and you'll see him go downfield, and then he's throwing one guy literally. throwing guys to the ground. I mean, I don't remember too many running backs doing that, taking that free arm, that stiff arm, and just taking a guy and grabbing him, not
he wants to punish them.
Yeah, just throw him into the ground. And then when he gets stood up, now all of a sudden you see 5 offensive linemen, and it's the old rugby scrum, and they're getting in there and they're pushing downfield. And I just think that he brings that attitude. And I think it is an intangible thing. But it's, stylistically, if you're the Steelers and you're trying to wear a team down, that's sort of part of your DNA. We're going to have a physical offensive line. That offensive line is going to bring their will to your defensive line. And right behind that is a 240-pound running back who's also going to hit you like a sledgehammer again and again and again. Tun Chilton used to say that about Jerome Bettis, that as the game wore on, players, I think Tunch actually took it from somebody else, but that, guys would come up with, I don't know, coach, just took a bad angle.
Make some business decisions.
Yeah, they get tired.
I think Jerome used to say nobody wants to tackle the fat guy in the fourth quarter.
Well, that's much more simply put than what I was saying. And then you bring Cordero Patterson behind that. And let's not forget, when he's healthy, Jalen Warren runs the exact same way. But Najee's the guy that's getting most of the carries, doing most of the work, and sort of laying the groundwork for that attitude that I think is the kind of attitude that the Steelers want. Interesting quote. I think it was before the Broncos game, and their coach said, when you're facing the Steelers, you better get ready to go into a dark place. Well, that's what I want to hear if I'm the Steelers, man. I want them already thinking that before the game even starts. And then, by the way, here's the proof in the pudding. As we ram it down your throat a bunch of times. So I think Najee does set that tone, and I do think he plays and has value beyond just the raw statistics.
And on the other side of the ball, Rob, Cam Hayward brings some of that same physical just nastiness to it. There was a play yesterday where he didn't make the play. The play was away from him to the other side of the line, and the Chargers tried to block him with a tight end, and he just took the tight end and just threw him out of the bar.
That's an embarrassment.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
Just took him and threw him like 8 yards.
That's
get out of
here.
Yeah. But he made some plays yesterday where it was like, even if he didn't get the tackle, he was just driving the guards back into the backfield, and just he didn't have the stats weren't great yesterday for Cam Hayward.
But he was manhandling people.
But he was definitely a factor there. He had 4 tackles, a sack, 2 tackles for losses, and that doesn't even begin to say what kind of game he had.
And the penetration he caused,
just havoc
as the handoffs were being set.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing running backs hate more.
Yeah, there are a bunch of players in the team. There's an old saying that's it's amazing what you can accomplish together when no one cares who gets the credit, And I think there's an element of that with the Steelers defense. Patrick Queen, I thought, was more noticeable in this game. But you're right about, and I think Deshaun Elliott's one of those guys that helps you set a tone. But Cam Hayward's your captain. And I think that, he obviously had an injury-plagued season a year ago, and I'm sure he heard the whole – is this it, Cam? Are you going to hang it up?
Oh, we talked about that yesterday after the game. We were actually talking after the game, and he said something about the coaching staff making it. Somebody asked him about, what changed in the second half, and he said we made some good adjustments in the second, at halftime. That our coaching staff's pretty good at making adjustments in those at halftime and fixing the issues that we had. And I said to him, like, wait, according to social media, your coaching staff never makes any adjustments.
Oh, right.
And he goes, well, there's a lot of stuff said on social media that just gets put out there. Don't get me started on that. And I knew exactly what he was talking about because all off season long, why would you pay Cam Hayward? Why would you do this? He's trade him. He's washed up. He's done. He hears all that stuff.
Yeah.
And
I'm not poking that bear.
No, don't get him going.
And again, I try to be careful when I say those kind of things because, and I agree 100% with what you guys are saying and where we're going here. But, look, he's a professional. He's always going to be, giving everything he's got, right? It's not like suddenly he wakes up, I've been insulted, now I'm going to become a new player. Well, I mean, he's always been a great player, and great players don't get to be great players without working extremely hard, whatever motivates them. But a little extra motivation is never a terrible thing in life. And I think Cam, and I think Russell Wilson, if we see him at some point this season, I think he's got a little extra motivation
no question.
as well. So I think that's good to have on a team. But, yes, look, he's the captain. That's who Cam Hayward is. He's a leader on that team. And so to have him be disruptive, and, Dale and I briefly talked about this with Wolf, Matt and I, with Wolf on an earlier show. Cam Hayward and Quentin Nelson this week, can't wait. Two old war horses. Cam's a little older than Nelson, but two great players just going at it, and two guys that their teams rely on to sort of set the tone for them. Nelson on the offensive line, 6-time Pro Bowler, 6 seasons, 6 Pro Bowls. Hard to do much better than that. And then Cam Hayward on the other side. I can't wait for that sort of matchup within the matchup. But, yeah, you're absolutely right. Cam Hayward is, he's the tone setter, a tone setter for sure on that defense.
So I think the Steelers got another one of those type of guys in Zach Frazier. And by no means can you compare him to Cam Hayward. Talk to me in a decade.
Right,
you have
sure,
to,
that's right.
Yeah, right. I mean, I'm not saying he's pouncy and Webby rolled into one with a sprinkle of Dermontti Dawson, but his style of play is to the echo of the whistle. It fits this town and this organization extremely well. He's already making the pre-snap calls. Like he's already way ahead of expectations.
I love the nickname that Wolf has put on him, the Morgantown Mauler. That's about right. That's his kind of play. I thought Andy Weidel, old offensive lineman himself, right? He talked to the media a couple of weeks ago. It was during the preseason. And, he said something that's kind of basic, but it also shows that you're being true to yourself. He said, if you want to be a smart, tough, physical team, then you need to draft smart, tough, physical players, right? I mean, it only goes, I think sometimes you get organizations that say, well, we'll get them in we'll do this or we'll do that, or we're going to. The Steelers, they want to be a smart physical team, so they're going to look for smart physical players. That's what Zach Frazier is. He brings that attitude. You're right. He brings an attitude to the offensive line, a play to the whistle. That can be infectious. And I think that, we haven't seen Siamalu yet this year. He's that kind of player for sure. So you're trying to build that identity, that toughness. You need that. You need players that play with that kind of toughness. And Zach Frazier definitely does that. Through 3 games, he's already stood out. I mean, people, look, it's 3 games in, and this can turn, I don't think it's going to, but it can do an about face. We understand that. Things can change. Rookies can hit the wall. Things can happen. But, you like to be the team in which people are saying, hey, Zach Frazier, that might have been the steal of the draft. Hey, Fields, that might have been the best trade of the offseason. You'd like to be the team where the accolades are being pointed in your direction. Now, again, 3 games in, we have to temper that a little bit, but it's still nice to hear outsiders saying that about people like Frazier and, of course, Fields, as I just mentioned as well.
Yeah, Rob, since you mentioned Isaac Seumalo, this is going to be an interesting week this week. We know now Troy Fautanu.
Well done. How about that? We're
goes on IR on Saturday. Reports out there that he might be back for the playoffs. We'll see. But we also know the Steelers are without Nate Herbig.
Cook's not available at the moment.
Cooks is still not available until after this game against the Colts. Then they can activate him. I would assume that happens. The offensive line depth has been tested on this team. We got to see Mason McCormick get his feet wet as that extra blocker in this game. That offensive line depth that they went into the preseason with is really being tested at this point. It'd be nice to get through this game against the Colts. We'll see if Seumalo plays. You'll definitely probably get Cook back, but they're getting a little thin up there.
And they've been remarkably fortunate the last couple of years with offensive line injuries, and now it's like, And real quick, back to Andy Weidel. I believe this front office believes in they always want an extra O lineman. Did they have to draft McCormick after taking those other two? No, but kind of happy they did.
Yeah, Gordon Gecko Green is good, right?
Give me one more.
Give me more. If you want to be greedy with offensive linemen, that's okay with me. Because of this reason, and because there aren't that many really, really good offensive linemen. There's a scarcity in the game. Few teams can go as deep as the Steelers. The three of us were marveling at their depth up in Latrobe. Well, this is why you had that depth because of the injuries that you just mentioned. I mean, 2 guys lost for the year, and
that would be devastating for most teams.
Oh yeah,
they would be done.
And
then Siamalu hasn't even played, and he's you go into this year. If you're identifying the leader and your best offensive lineman, you're pointing to him. That's your guy.
Yeah.
That's the one right there. And you've been out without him. So these are substantial losses that this offensive line has suffered. 3 guys. And then you're still bringing in a 6th offensive lineman, by the way. And then you just mentioned Cook is another guy who's coming back. So this depth has been tested. It's enviable depth. Now it's not quite so enviable anymore when, of the 9 guys we just mentioned, 2 of them are out for the year. So that does, or, at least for the regular season in the case of Fautano, if the reports are correct. So that is being tested. You hope that that's about it on the injury front. My goodness, you could use some, you've had your share of misfortune. Now you could use maybe some better fortune from this offensive line. But, yeah, that's why you draft a guy like McCormick. And I do think that when they get Siamalu back, and, now you can kind of rest back and say, okay, assuming he goes in and takes that left guard spot and nobody else is nicked up, Anderson is a guy with great versatility. He's gone out there and acquitted himself well as a starting left guard for the first 3 weeks and I think probably 4 weeks of the season. McCormick's gotten his feet wet, and now maybe you can exhale a little bit and say, okay, and you get Cook back for that, as another tackle. Maybe you can feel better about your depth again. But yeah, it has been sorely tested at this point of the season.
And I hadn't thought about it until you two were having this conversation, but there's some players that haven't really contributed yet that will. Sutton, Siamalu, maybe Roman Wilson, maybe Russell Wilson. Mm-hmm. I would even throw Warren in that mix. We know what he's capable of and just hasn't been asked to do it yet. I mean, that's still coming.
Yeah. I think, and again, Dale, Matt, and I were having this conversation, and you and I we probably had this conversation too, that, no team has got incredible depth at every position. You just can't have it. But when you think about where the Steelers, and so people, I think, going into this team would have said, well, what about the wide receiver position, and what about the cornerback position? And, of course, Russell Wilson coming off a year in which he was benched for the final 2 games by his coach. Justin Fields, a former first-round pick who was supposed to be his backup. Of course, you had, where's the quarterback position going to go? Right? I think right now it's gone well, and you like where the arrow's pointed. But as far as the depth in those teams, the offensive line has been tested. The cornerback depth, not quite as deep. You were hoping on Trice, and you're hoping you can get through till Sutton comes back later on in the season. But I mean, again, you can't. No team's like, oh, we got 8 cornerbacks. We're fine. Don't worry about it. Our 5th string guy's a 3-time Pro Bowler. Come on, man. That just doesn't happen. Those are tough positions to fill. So you hope that Jackson's okay. We went back in the game, and Trice is going to be okay because Trice has been, you hoped, right? You hoped on Trice and you hoped on Rush, but I mean, my goodness, I think about Corey Trice, right? Flashed in the offseason last year, didn't get any games, got hurt. He's been out for a year. And then to come back and look the way he's looked, it's hard not to get excited about what Corey Trice is going to be able to do. So, the depth has been tested in some key spots, but the Steelers, again, they still have some guys in some positions that are coming back. We're talking earlier about, kind of fortunate that the Chargers, Joey Bosa went down and some other. Okay, well, yeah, but what about Siamalu? What about Alex Highsmith? What about your starting quarterback?
The Steelers had to play snaps yesterday with James Pierre on the field.
Right.
Yeah,
who they just signed off the couch earlier in the week, Right.
Yeah, wonderful special teams player. And we've seen him play some defensive
back for sure. Absolutely. It's not like he's never done it, but he hadn't been in training camp all year,
But he wasn't on the team.
Yeah.
he was available to any team out there. That's right. So, but again, nice to have a guy that comes in and knows what you want to do defensively. But for sure, that is, and by the way, you lost a great special teamer too. So, the Steelers have had their share of injuries as well early on, and you hope that kind of evens out and they don't continue to get dinged up. They've got great depth on this roster. I think that, again, the three of us have been talking about that really all, since the beginning of camp. I think these guys, the Steelers front office, Omar Khan and company, have assembled a very deep roster. Again, and what about the wide receiver? Okay, we get it. Like I just said, you're not going to have every single position is not going to be, teaming with all pros. However, I think that, within reasonable expectations, this roster is, when they began the season, is about as deep as you can be.
Absolutely.
I know you got to roll, but the last thing I want to throw in too is you kind of mentioned it. We didn't even mention Skoranek or Johnston getting injured. I mean, you mentioned special teamers. Right. Those guys look really, really good at what they were brought here to do.
Yeah, I mean, Cam Johnston, and Skoranek was right. I mean, too bad for him. Obviously, to be hurt like that, and same with Cam Johnston, who looked like, but the addition of he and Cordero Patterson, although they're not, getting any kickoffs to return, turned, to me, the Steelers' special teams into a real strength on paper heading into the season. But by the way, man, hats off to Corliss Waitman.
Yeah.
Oh, he has been phenomenal.
Yeah, he's booming the ball.
He has been great. But, yeah, Cam Johnston, again, a guy that was really well liked by his teammates and a real difference maker, top punter. So the Steelers have for sure had their share of injuries.
Our guest has been
they're 3-0.
And they're 3-0.
That's the bottom line.
Our guest has been Rob King, the voice of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Who that was a nice little ceremony thing for Billy Hillgrove yesterday. Glad to see Billy there. I didn't get a chance to see him in person. We text back and forth all the time, though, still to this day. But glad to see him honored for that home opener. And I saw you guys put out a photo that you got to see Billy yesterday. So that was very nice. But Rob King has been our guest. He is Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here in the Steelers Radio Network. We'll be back with more right after this.
This is The Drive with Dale Lolley and Matt Williamson on your 24/7 home of the black and gold. SNR, Steelers Nation Radio.
And welcome back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And I thought the end of our call there with Rob was a good point there by all of us.
Oh, yeah.
That the Steelers are doing what they're doing right now, Matt. They've had 4 different offensive linemen now get their first snaps in the NFL.
Mm-hmm. Some by design, Frazier.
Yeah.
But I mean,
you still had to do it,
right?
Like
Herbig had to get hurt for Frazier to take over too. Right?
Anderson was dealing with a little something yesterday. I saw him down. He was on the sideline flexing his knee a little bit.
I wasn't exactly sure what was going on.
There was something there. He was in and out of the game a little bit. They were getting McCormick out there.
Yeah.
Then they went with a 6 offensive line look, and which
was in the cards.
Was in the cards. They wanted to do that stuff last week.
I thought Anderson might have been struggling. They didn't, because I didn't think he played great. I thought Daniels and Frazier were much better than Anderson on the left side. I didn't know if he was getting replaced or if there was an injury.
He was nobody mentioned anything. No. I saw him on the sideline when he was out, and he was down there kind of flexing his left knee, and I'm like, is he dealing with a little something? Usually that's a good sign if they're doing something like that, something's going on there.
I hope it doesn't pop up tomorrow that he's on the injury report or something.
Yeah, right. But you've had that. You lost your punter.
Yeah.
In the middle of a game.
Right. I mean, it's a small thing, but you thought you found a gunner in Skoranek, and boom.
2 of them.
I mean, you're right.
You lost 2 big special teams guys with Matakevich as well.
Yeah. But some of it's positive, like I mentioned. You still have Sutton out there, and you've done this well without
2 months ago, we're talking about
Roman.
Was Roman Wilson going to be the number 2 receiver on this team? He hasn't played it down yet.
But he might. I mean, you might have a quarterback that
right. Their starting quarterback hasn't played the first 3 games, and you're 3-0.
Yeah, and I really think Warren's in that conversation too.
Yeah,
he has not been called upon or looked quite the same, but I bet he will.
Yeah, they're kind of easing him back into it. They don't want to get put too much on his plate. Hey, don't stress it too much.
And in 5 weeks, you get Sutton back.
Yeah,
that's not that long.
Yeah, and we'll see when Russell Wilson's ready to play. And look, Justin Fields has played. He's played well.
Yeah.
You can't take it away from him. I still think at the end of the day, when this is at some point, Russell Wilson is going to be healthy.
Right.
And I still think he's going to be the starting quarterback. This may open this start may make them look at Justin Fields differently at the end of the year. I look at Justin
Fields differently now.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that's very reactive from one game. And this is we kept Rob long. This is a short radio segment just to pull back the curtain, so I don't have a lot of time to get into this huge topic. But I feel like I'm being contradictory to what I've said all along. I'm very interested in keeping Fields as a starter right now until further review. I mean, or at least in the short term, because he really impressed me that much yesterday.
He played well. I mean, you can't take it away from him.
Doing things I hadn't seen from him in the past.
To me, I just think that you brought Wilson in for a reason.
Oh, he's certainly done nothing wrong.
No.
I mean,
and
this is an unkind game.
The last time we saw him, it was a short time in a preseason game, but I saw him complete a 25-yard out to George Pickens that was a pure arm strength throw that he anticipated the out cut and trusted. Like, okay, give me that. Give me a guy who's going to throw the ball into the end zone and throw touchdown passes.
And I've been saying all along, he's a starter. He's a starter. He'd be my starter. He'd be my starter. And a lot of that's because of what I saw in camp and where he's been around the block and the professionalism and all that stuff really matters. And I'm sure he'll play sometime this year, one way or another.
I mean, just think of the injuries we've seen.
I mean, it's likely. I mean, even if Fields lighten it up. But I would say through 3 games, this quarterback situation's gone a lot better than I expected.
It's certainly better than a lot of people looked at, I think, nationally.
Right, like, that's going to be one of the worst quarterbacks.
Oh, they're going to be awful. This is going to be Tomlin's first losing season. Mm-hmm. Well, we were saying all along that wasn't going to be the case because this team was going to be really good on defense, as we've been pretty consistently said, and the depth that they have.
And I believe this to be a fact, whether he remains a starter or not. They're 3-0 with their backup quarterback.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I mean, the plan was Wilson to be the starter.
This guy would be number 2. There's no other team in the league that you could say that about.
Exactly. You know, like, what do you think the Chargers are going to do if Herbert can't play next year?
I mean, you could say Sam Darnold was the backup.
Packers actually count.
They do, but they're 2-0
with Willis, which is amazing.
Yeah,
right.
And he's played well.
Darnold's a different story. Darnold's probably
he was going to be the starter.
He was going to be the starter. Yeah, he was the better player in week 1 than the rookie. Right.
But, I mean, so, the 2 franchises, and one of the things we talked about in the offseason with the Packers, look at the depth that they have in that offense.
Yeah, all that youth and depth. And Yeah. And you brought up the Vikings. I think that's the only defense in the league that can compete with the Steelers for best in the league right now. That stuff still matters.
Absolutely.
Aaron Jones is churning out yards on the ground.
Running and defense still matter in the NFL.
100%. 100%.
And,
maybe more than it has in a while.
Yeah, the Steelers have been ahead of the curve on this.
Yeah.
That that this is where the league is going, and they were ahead of it. Mm-hmm. They might have been the trendsetter. I mean, people, is it too big? Is it too big of a thought to say that people looked at the Steelers this offseason and go, how is Mike Tomlin winning all these games with those quarterbacks?
Oh yeah,
and they say, well, we can do that. It's easier to do that than it is to go find a franchise quarterback.
Well, I mean, free agency showed that teams were paying running backs and guards and
interior linemen.
Right. I mean, money talks.
Absolutely. Let's get to a break. That's going to do it for hour number 1 of the drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I will be back with hour number 2 of the drive right after this. And we are back with hour number 2 of the drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And Matt, it is time for the Fantasy Football Focus. Let's look at the top performers.
All right, I like
from Week 3. Once again, only 4 300-yard quarterbacks, and the top 2 guys on here both lost their games. Dak Prescott threw for 379 and 2 touchdowns against the Ravens. They lose that game 28-25.
Total comeback mode.
Yeah. Caleb Williams, kind of the same thing.
Very much the same thing.
33 of 52 for 363 yards. Then you had Andy Dalton.
That was against the Colts, who the upcoming opponent,
the opponent, the Colts. Andy Dalton was 26 of 37 for 319 yards and 3 touchdown passes. And the Carolina Panthers, who, quite frankly, after watching them 2 weeks ago against the Chargers, I thought were maybe the worst team I'd ever seen.
I thought so too.
They go out and beat the Raiders.
It's not just one guy, but even if you watch that Chargers game or their Week 1 game, the O-line that they paid so much money for was blocking people. Deontay still knows how to get open.
Yeah.
Quarterback was that bad.
It was that bad. That's why that position gets paid so much money.
Right. And I didn't know if Dalton would be good or not.
Yeah.
But he was.
He was good. He was good enough.
Yeah. I also think the Raiders' D is particularly great either. But that was a shocker of all shockers.
It's kind of surprising that they went into Las Vegas and did that. The Ravens had lost to the Raiders. The league is so topsy-turvy right now.
And, like, the Raiders can't run the ball at all.
Yeah.
And, we'll talk about some of that other stuff. But, yeah, I don't know that I'd run and pick up Dalton off the waiver wire and plug him in your lineup this week.
Yeah.
But that was promising. I think Deontay's a lot more valuable now. Or maybe you want to get Jonathan Brooks or, somebody like that, or Chuba Hubbard.
Jalen Hurts, 29 of 38 for 311. Didn't throw a touchdown pass, so 1 interception, 4 sacks in that game. They pulled it out against
Barkley. Goddard and
Barkley,
over and over and over, yeah.
Brock Purdy just missed 22 of 30 for 292 and 3 touchdowns. Again, so 3 of the top 5 passers this week lost their games.
And Purdy played well. Hurts played well. They weren't the reasons they lost, but it's hard to control the game.
Yeah. On the other end of this, we had Jacoby Brissett threw for 98 yards. That was a loss. Aiden O'Connell came in for the Raiders, 9 of 12 for 82 yards and a touchdown. They might be making a change there.
I don't know what's going on with that. I think their season is spiraling in a very rapid manner. Is it Devontae Adams on the trade block time?
Maybe.
I think that's not crazy. Or send Minshew to Miami. Get something for him while you can. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, there's some bad stuff. I saw Pierce after the game said, hey, we had some guys make some business decisions today. And moving forward, we may make some business decisions as well.
The way they're structured and the type of coach he is, that can't happen.
Right.
It just can't.
And he's been around the game long enough to understand as a former pro player himself.
Oh, sure.
If a guy's not, you're just going out there going through the motions.
Yeah, it's contagious, and then losing becomes contagious, and you got to nip that in the bud.
I actually think he's a pretty good coach.
I don't.
I think he has a pretty good understanding of how to run a team.
I think he relates to players extremely well, and
which
knows
I think is
how
a huge part of it.
No doubt. I just think he's.
I don't know if he's got the right coordinators and those kind of things in there with him, but
I don't know if he's a CEO.
Yeah. Some of the top quarterbacks, some of the guys that were drafted early, C.J. Stroud, 215, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. He didn't even finish that game.
No.
Kyler Murray.
Flores is doing that to everybody right now.
Kyler Murray had 207 and a touchdown with an interception. Jared Goff's another one, 199 and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, that was all about the run game.
Yeah. Deshaun Watson.
Oh, he's bad.
They're in trouble.
7 or 8 sacks. They got Wills back at left tackle. It's like, oh, good, we finally.
Yeah.
He was a turnstile. And then they lost Lyman throughout the game. They couldn't block at all, and he's not good enough to get over.
I just saw that the one guard is out for the next 4 weeks.
Yeah, I think it's Teller, right?
Teller, yeah.
Yep. They're quote,
who I think is
guys.
Overrated, but
yeah, but he's a quality starter.
He's a starter,
nonetheless,
and
right?
On a team that doesn't have any right now.
And they could use Nick Chubb so bad. The normal version of him. They don't. I don't know if you saw that, but they kick off the Giants. The Giants fumble the opening kickoff. They throw a quick touchdown to Cooper, and then
nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah, they actually made
Myles Garrett's hurt.
They made Daniel Jones look pretty good. He threw for 236 and 2 touchdowns.
And Malik Neighbors is pretty good.
Lamar Jackson threw 15 passes.
Yeah.
In that game yesterday, he was 12 of 15 for 182 and a touchdown.
Dallas's run defense stinks. I give Harbaugh a lot of credit for. Let's not use Henry is a part-time player. If we're going to invest in Henry, give him the ball over and over and over. And he was getting to the second level consistently with big stiff arms, throwing safeties around like he used to in Tennessee. But subsequently, Mark Andrews catches 0 balls.
Was on the field for like 15 plays.
Yeah, there must be an injury with him.
Yeah, well, he was only out there when they're throwing the ball.
Mm-hmm.
If they're running the football, he wasn't going to be out there because he didn't block anybody.
Side note, they did quickly get into run the clock out mode, and it was working well. But they almost lost that
They
game
almost
in
got
the
into
end.
it too quickly.
You're right. I mean, their penchant for not putting teams away in the fourth quarter is scary.
It almost bit them again.
Yep, it was close.
We had 6 100-yard rushers. By the way, Sam Darnold, 4 touchdown passes again yesterday.
Yeah, he's doing all right.
Yeah.
He's fantasy relevant.
Yeah. Derrick Henry, 25 carries, 151 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Okay. Yeah.
Saquon Barkley, 17 for 147 and 2 touchdowns. These guys were both kind of late first, second round draft picks.
I underestimated Barkley for fantasy. He's been really good.
Been really good. Chuba Hubbard, 21 for 114.
Yeah, it's a good start.
Change of quarterback makes a little bit of a difference.
Yep. Jonathan
Taylor, who the Steelers will see this week, 23 for 110 and 2 touchdowns.
So
Richardson had completed less than 50% of his passes again this week.
He's a 49% passer for the year.
And
33% passer, 12 or further yards downfield. 33. So to their credit, we'll talk a lot of Colts, but I started digging in. They wisely took a lot off Richardson's plate and put it on Taylor's plate.
Yeah.
Who looks
That's
like
what you're paying him the money
He's
for.
a great back. That's going to be the whole key to that game is stopping Taylor to me.
Yeah. David Montgomery, 23 for 105 and a touchdown.
Both their backs. Yeah.
Aaron Jones, 19 for 102. Zach Charbonnet just missed 18 for 91 and 2 touchdowns against Miami.
Yeah. I mean, with Walker out, he's the whole show.
Yeah. Kyron Williams, 24 for 89 and 2 touchdowns against the Niners.
And he's kind of the reason they came back in that game.
Yeah.
And they just kept leaning on him. They played pretty well.
Lamar Jackson had 14 for 87 and a touchdown in that game. So even though he didn't throw the ball a lot, he ran the ball almost as many times as he threw it.
Mm-hmm. Not super uncommon for him, but Ravens are finding their way.
Yeah. But there was Josh Jacobs, 14 for 43 in that win over the Titans. It's kind of surprising.
I know.
Although Tennessee's typically pretty hard to run against.
They are, but Willis had some.
He made some plays.
Willis made some plays.
He had 73 rushing yards.
Yeah. Like, I'm not saying he's going to be in the same level as, like, Darnold and Fields, but go from a terrible situation to a really good situation, it helps.
It helps. And it was he was going from an offense in Tennessee that he to a
wasn't
team
even drafted for.
Yeah.
A new one.
But it's the same offense effectively. LaFleur was the offensive coordinator in Tennessee.
I'm sure, much like the Steelers with Fields, they looked at him and be like, I can get him for a 7th-round pick? Yeah, I've seen things with him we can develop.
And he knows the offense. It's not going to be that big of a, you know.
That's a shrewd move.
Absolutely. Bucky Irving had 9 for 70. You interested in Bucky Irving?
Tampa?
Yeah.
I was getting confused with the Philly guy. Yes.
They can't run the ball.
They can't run the ball at all. They got dominated at the line of scrimmage. By the way, that Denver front looked like we thought it could.
Yeah.
And the Steelers handled it much better than the Bucs. So some Rachaad White things I saw on today is, but he's catching a lot of passes. Every one of them's at the line of scrimmage or behind.
Yeah.
He's going to get benched. So, yes, I'm very interested in Bucky Irving.
I think Bucky Irving's a guy that should be picked up in all leagues.
If he's on the waiver wire, I would put a fair amount on him. He might not be out there. But
Carson Steele had a good game, 17 for 72. He's the banger.
P. Ryan's going to be the receiver.
Yeah, but he's probably already been picked up. How about Tyler Batty with Denver? 9 for 70.
I think he's taking over the starting job. I don't know a ton about him, but I was listening to a Football Guys podcast. Cecil Lammey does what we do for the Denver. He's like, Batty's their best guy. He's going to take us over.
Yeah. Braylon Allen looked good. Braylon Allen should not be on the waiver wire. He was in our league. I picked him up.
I wish he was like a Cowboy.
Yeah.
Like he'd be a starter some places. He looks that good,
He looks good. If you are a Breece Hall owner and you don't have Braylon Allen, shame on you.
Yeah, you better be loaded elsewhere. Or you know,
you better have somebody I can't cut this guy.
Right.
But that's definitely one that should be there. Again, Emmanuel Wilson, 12 for 50.
Yeah, that hurt Jacobs a little bit too. Yeah.
But 12 carries. I mean, they were blowing them out. So
they were.
Yeah.
I don't think they wanted to.
They still wanted to run the
Jacobs
football
too much up. Yeah, because it is a good defense.
Yeah.
Real quick on Dallas, it looks like Dowdell is starting to take. He's starting to make a strong move for more carries.
Still not doing a whole lot though.
No.
But they couldn't run the ball because they're behind.
Their O-line didn't have a great day either.
Yeah, that's kind of it right now for the running back situation. Let's move over to the wide receiver and tight end. Not that many, only 6 100-yard games this week.
There's just not a lot of passing yards out there going in the league at the moment.
but Juan Jennings,
Yeah.
11 for 175 and 3 flipping touchdowns.
On everyone's bench or on the waiver wire.
Yeah.
I mean, San Fran has a history. Everyone thought it'd be Ayuk. When one guy goes down, somebody blows up. Happened to be him, and you mentioned earlier in the show, Ayuk doesn't look back to being quite himself. Kittle was out for this game. So whoever you think's going to get the ball in San Francisco is going to put up fantasy numbers.
Listen to these are the 6 guys that put up 100 or more receiving yards this week.
Okay.
Juwan Jennings, Dallas Goedert,
Yeah.
Deontay Johnson, Rome Odunze, Rashee Rice, and DK Metcalf. The only 2 guys who were guaranteed to be in anybody's lineup were the last 2 guys, Rashee Rice and DK Metcalf.
Rice and Metcalf, yeah. The other ones are
the other
probably
ones might have
unbenched.
been in some. People have probably benched on Deontay Johnson at this point.
You couldn't trust him at this point.
He had
was
8 for 122 and a touchdown. That's a career high receiving yards for
Odunze's
him.
not yet the
You're not starting
level.
Odunze, yeah. 6 for 112 and a touchdown.
But since you brought him up, Rice should be a second-round pick if we redrafted right
Yeah.
now. I mean, he gets so many targets.
He had 12 for 110 and a touchdown, although he did get hurt late in that game.
Yeah, he came right back, but
He takes some big hits because
he
everything's
takes-
near the line of scrimmage.
he takes a serious punishment. He's like Kelsey.
To me, he's more like, without the running stuff, more like Metcalf, Samuels, Debo Samuel.
In some ways,
Because it's a lot of run after the catch. It's a lot of just get him
it's-
the football and let him run after the catch.
and a lot of it's the middle of the field with
Yeah.
linebackers and safeties crushing him, and he drags people. I compare him to Michael Thomas a little bit, where that whole slant boy thing. Like,
Yeah.
if I need 7 yards, I can get it to him over and over and over, and they do. And you mentioned him getting hurt. Juju scored in the exact Rashee Rice role that was manufactured for him that definitely would have went to Rice, but while he was out for a couple plays.
And then DK Metcalf had 4 for 101.
He's been pretty good.
Or 104 and a touchdown.
He's exceeded my expectations this year.
Cole Kmet had 10 for 97 and a touchdown.
The Bears threw for like 400 yards.
They had to throw every down.
Because Swift is terrible, their O-line's terrible, their center's terrible.
Did you see the play? I think it was Swift at the goal line, and they tried to run a toss to him, and the entire offensive line got thrown to I think Warren Sharp put the video out. The entire offensive line got thrown to the ground.
To the ground.
And there were like 7 defensive guys running to the ball carrier. Like, Swift has no chance.
Oh, yeah, it's like Benny Hill comedy.
Yeah.
I mean, like, like that never happens on an NFL field.
Yeah. So Cole Kmet, 10 for 97 and a touchdown. He's
Don't chase it.
Yeah. Trey Tucker for the Raiders, 7 for 96 and a touchdown.
I'll just be honest. It makes me wonder when I see things like that. Well, maybe we could move Adams.
Or maybe maybe you keep Adams, and again you move
Myers.
Myers,
right,
yeah.
Because they're going to throw Bowers a ton of balls, and the other tight ends on the field all the time.
Yeah. Jake Ferguson came back 6 for 95. Calvin Austin.
Yeah, that was promising.
4 for 95 and a touchdown. You picking up Calvin Austin?
No. It's not that I dislike him. I mean, I don't think Jefferson's a miss extended time.
A lot of that was because Jefferson was out.
Yeah. I mean, and he needs a big play.
Stephon Diggs, 10 for 94, didn't score. Tyler Conklin, 5 for 93. If he has Aaron
That's
Rodgers
not
as his
horrible.
quarterback,
Right.
Tyler Conklin is relevant because Aaron Rodgers likes to throw to the tight end.
And the state of the tight ends in the fantasy world is not great right now, to say the least.
Yeah. Tutu Atwell had 4 for 93.
He also threw a pass.
Yeah. One of those is the 50-yarder that set up the tying score. But
Atwell and Robinson there are rosterable,
yeah,
watch list type guys.
And I'm just looking down here to see if there's anybody else that jumps out as a top performer who wouldn't be in leagues right now. And, well, Christian Watson had 2 for 67.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not running out there to pick that up. But Darnell Mooney.
I'm going to go back to the Packers. Let's talk about Mooney 1 second. Dobbs has led that team in routes every game this year, and that's the guy nobody wants to draft or give credit to.
You hate him.
I'm hard on him, but they're
If
hard
he's
to deal with.
available, he's got to be in leagues because
Love's coming
Love
back.
likes him.
Yeah, Love's coming back. I think Mooney's relevant.
Mooney is definitely relevant.
Yeah, I mean he was featured. I think he got at least as many targets as London in that game.
He finished with 8 for 66.
It wasn't
London
long
finished
ago
with
that-
6 for 67 and a touchdown. So,
Wasn't long ago that Mooney was good.
Yeah. So, they got two relevant guys on that team, including and Pitts, who seems to be the forgotten guy.
Yeah, he's hard to trust, too, as part of the tight end landscape.
How about Michael Wilson? He had
what did he do?
8 for 64 for the Arizona Cardinals.
I like the 8 part.
Yeah, 8's good.
It's a good
8
offense.
Is great.
Watch list.
Yeah, he's definitely
Give
somebody
me
to
one
keep
more
an
week.
eye on.
Yeah, I liked him in the preseason. I liked him coming out of school. He's a good compliment to Harrison.
Yeah.
And McBride. I think McBride got dinged up in that game, too.
Our contest this week, well, we didn't win.
Huh? I know Akers hurt us bad.
Yeah, Akers was not good.
I picked him up and started him in the league. At least he got in the end zone. But
I'm just calling it up here. That's the wrong one. I put together my own lineup, but actually outscored our lineup, so that was not good. But we finished with probably be our season low in points of 97.18. We hit some guys that, Derek Carr did nothing.
No, right.
Nothing.
No points in that game.
Jameer Gibbs had 16.3, which is okay.
Yeah, it was fine.
Akers, as you mentioned, 9.9 points.
Brutal,
that didn't work out. Ayuk, 9.8. He had 5 catches for 48 yards. Olave was a good call.
Yeah, Olave
20.6.
Looks like he's going to be fine.
Pickens, I don't think was a wrong call, but it was 5 for 57. He had 7 targets.
I know we're on a Steeler network, but if I was doing DFS, I would invest in him every week.
Yeah.
He's going to be,
he's
might even be cheaper
5,700.
this week, right? He might be cheaper this week because he didn't blow up.
Brock Bowers didn't do it for us this week. He was owned in 31.4% of leagues. We weren't alone on Ayuk, by the way. Ayuk was in 57.5% of the leagues.
Was Akers in a ton?
He was at 38.7.
Okay, still pretty heavy, yeah.
Jordan Mason, again,
He was
76.4% of the leagues, he got 10.8 points.
Wow. So there's a lot of losers out there.
Yeah. And then the Titans' defense got us 3 sacks. So
bad week for us, though.
It was a bad week. But
Carr.
we weren't alone with some of these. Yeah.
How many points did we get from Carr?
That would be 8.98.
Yeah. I mean, those positions where you should get.
And he was in almost 18% of leagues. We were a little chalky last week, except for Gibbs.
Like it, yeah.
Gibbs and Pickens were the only two guys in our roster who were
like under
less
10%.
than 10%.
Okay. Yeah.
We got to think about
Gibbs
that next week when we do it. We got to try to maybe.
I remember saying when I suggested Akers, like, oh, he's going to be super chalky. The other guys I didn't think would.
Yeah. He
right.
was 4,700. And again, he gets you 9.9 points. That wasn't
That's because he scored on a receiving touchdown. They couldn't run the ball at all.
At all.
Yeah.
We'll do better next week. But we're going to take a break. He is the Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I will be back with more right after this. And we are back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And Matt, at this point, as you mentioned earlier in the show, the AFC has only 3 unbeatens at this point.
Yeah. Record aside, are there 7 deserved playoff teams in the AFC?
Well, if the playoffs started today,
okay,
it would be Pittsburgh as the number 1 seed.
Number 1.
Based on strength of victory at this point.
Okay. Kansas City must be 2.
Buffalo, right now at 2-0.
Oh.
They still got to play tonight.
Okay, yeah. I forgot there's 4 teams tonight.
Kansas City at 3-0. Houston would win the South. They would be the 4 seed.
Any concern with them after kind of laying an egg?
Wasn't pretty.
Wasn't their best day. They had a lot of mistakes, a lot of penalties, a lot of sacks, awful place to play. I think they'll be okay.
I think they'll be all right. The Jets will be the 5 seed. The Chargers, the 6 seed.
Okay.
The 7 seed would be the Las Vegas Raiders.
They're 1 and 2, right?
Wins the tiebreaker. Yeah, 1 and 2. Wins the tiebreaker over Miami based on strength of victory. Wins the tiebreaker over Indianapolis and Baltimore based on win percentage in conference games, and they beat Baltimore head to head. Division win or division tiebreaker was initially used to eliminate New England. And I think that's all the tiebreakers. Oh, and the division tiebreaker initially used to eliminate Cleveland.
Who did you say was that 7 seed right now?
The Raiders.
Yeah. With the Chargers as the 6.
The Chargers are the 6.
Have 2 wins, yeah.
Miami, New England, Denver, Indianapolis, Baltimore, and Cleveland, all with 1 victory. Cincinnati can get there tonight.
Mm-hmm. Cincinnati and Baltimore are the only teams I think are good from that list. That are 1 win or below.
Yeah.
And include the Chargers, to be honest with you.
I don't think the Chargers
I mean, those injuries are
When
going
we're
to derail
talking
things too.
6 weeks from now,
Yeah.
the Chargers aren't in on that list.
I was about to say a similar thing. I mean, I don't know how bad Bosa, Herbert,
I
and
think
the
they
two
play
tackles.
Kansas City this week.
Do they really? But we both thought they were somewhat overrated coming into the game and got a lot out of what they have.
So they play the Chiefs at home this week.
I can't imagine Herbert plays.
I
mean, Bosa was ruled out like that.
No, that was
what's
pretty
going on
quick.
with
And then
tackles,
with Slater, it's a pectoral injury. We know what those can be.
Yeah.
And as soon as he was ruled out, Herbert was ruled out. Like it was like at the same time.
Oh yeah.
They said Herbert. Well, he couldn't protect himself out there anymore. Well, he wasn't going to protect himself at all with Trey Pipkins at left tackle.
I'm sure you saw this, but Harbaugh said something along the lines of as soon as I see a limp with Herbert, I'm taking him out.
Yeah.
Well, coincided.
It happened to coincide with losing your left tackle.
Right,
yeah.
Right.
But
Alt didn't miss much time.
No,
it was
but
late, and I don't know if it was bad or not.
I wonder if they would take Alt and move him back to the left side if Slater is out.
That's interesting because Pipkins has played right.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean,
if it's going to be a long-term thing.
Probably.
I think that would be the move
to make.
The
move to make.
Here's what they got. Chiefs at the Broncos, which is never an easy place to play.
Oh, no.
The Cardinals.
Hypothetical. Chargers or Broncos today. Without Herbert, they're a dog.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah.
And I wasn't high on the Broncos, but they did good things yesterday.
They played well.
Yeah.
At the Cardinals.
That
won't be an easy game. Then they get the Saints at home. Then they're at the Browns.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be in playoff contention at Thanksgiving.
No, then they get the Titans, Bengals, Ravens, at Falcons, at Chiefs. Boy, the back end of their schedule is rough.
Yes.
Buccaneers, yeah. They need to win some of these games. I don't know if they, if Herbert's out there in trouble.
Real quick, I mean, one of our favorite bets predictions was over/under win total for the Chargers go under. I feel pretty good about it now.
I still feel pretty good.
I didn't feel great about it 2-0, but
yeah.
I feel pretty good about it now.
Because it was 8.5. They're the same with the Steelers. They're both 8.5.
They're not similar organizations.
No,
right
not
now,
at all.
No.
I feel good about the top 5 teams really. The Steelers, Bills, Chiefs, Texans, Jets.
Yes,
those teams will probably be in the playoffs.
Unless the Jets get old and have a rash of injuries.
Yeah, Morgan Moses getting hurt.
I just hope that's not step one for them. If it's Tyron Smith, and now we don't have any tackles, and then Rodgers are getting hit. They're just fragile.
But that's only 5 teams, and
right.
then the Raiders aren't in it for the long haul.
I think Cincy and Baltimore are your next 2 best bets.
The Dolphins aren't in it for the long haul. The Patriots aren't in it for the long haul.
Miami's in big trouble.
Yeah.
Big trouble.
Denver isn't in it for the long haul.
If Jacksonville wins tonight, they could be back in it. If they lose tonight,
they could be done.
It could be like fire coach time.
Yeah.
I mean, I really think it's like getting close to that. Like 0-4 for them after paying Lawrence could be fire coach time.
Yeah.
But if they get back to 2-2 with a win tonight and be okay, they could be number 7.
Yeah.
I mean, all this is very subject to change, of course.
That playoff field as a whole, let's say it's the Steelers, Bills, and
they're just in the mix.
Steelers, Bills, Chiefs, Texans, Jets. Let's say it's the Bengals and Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on where you play those games, you don't want to go to Arrowhead. You don't want to have to go to Buffalo again.
Prefer not to go to Buffalo, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But
winning division wouldn't be bad.
Winning division would be you don't have to do that in the first round. Maybe you do end up with a bye.
Yeah.
The Chiefs are not playing great football right now.
No.
I say
they'll
that
be fine, but yeah.
They're playing well enough, and it's difficult when you are that team. You have the target on you every week. You're getting every team's best effort every week.
Oh yeah.
And so that's kind of what we've seen thus far with the Chiefs. Like they're getting, like everybody's, boy, the Chiefs barely won that one. They barely won that one. Oh, they were lucky to win that one. Yeah, because they're getting everybody's A game every week.
It's not an easy place to live.
I've seen the Steelers have to do that over the years. Like when you're the defending Super Bowl champion, you are getting everybody's A game.
And there's something to be said to that. And they're used to it. There's no question. And I don't think they're like the Golden State Warriors that they don't have to try hard.
Yeah.
That's not how this league works. But they're going to win that division.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
without
Let me say this,
much
too.
resistance.
So I don't typically get to watch a lot of Sunday games, but I was home early enough last night because it was a home 1 o'clock game.
And it was over in 4 minutes.
Yeah. To watch the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football, watch the Chiefs. I thought, first of all, I said I thought Atlanta could win that game going into the game, and
it was a pretty even battle. Yeah.
They probably should have. I have been a Chris Collinsworth defender over the years. Like when people, tweet at me and stuff like Collinsworth's awful. When Patrick Mahomes bends over to tie his shoe, Collinsworth doesn't have to say, "Oh, look at that! That's the greatest shoe tying I've ever seen." Oh, you really have to respect the way Patrick Mahomes ties his shoes. He goes around the horn on that. Like, come on,
nobody
Chris.
in the shoe tying history. Yeah.
He's good. We all know he's good.
We all know he's good. He's not playing great though.
No, he's not.
He will, but he isn't. Right? Their tackle
but everything's not the greatest thing you've ever seen. And oh my God, this is transcend. He's come down, and God touched him on his right shoulder. And I'm like, come on, Chris.
He doesn't walk on water, right? And he's struggling a little bit in their team.
You're allowed. Yeah, you're allowed to say that.
Right.
Everything's not the greatest thing you've ever seen.
Back to the original conversation, though. Like, it was only 3 weeks ago before the Steelers had played any games in the regular season.
Yeah.
And it looked like, man, AFC is going to be a gauntlet. I mean, so the number 8 seed, the number 9 seed, maybe that would have been Pittsburgh. Could have been a very worthy playoff team, but I don't see it like that anymore.
No, let's just look at the schedule ahead here.
Yeah. It's not so bad.
At the Colts.
Right.
This week. I mean, when before the season starts, that's going to be a tough game. They're an up-and-coming team.
I don't like where the Colts are at right now.
I don't like where they're at. Cowboys at home.
I don't like where they're at right now.
No. At the Raiders.
They're looking pretty bad.
Jets at home.
Okay.
Giants at home.
Right.
At the Commanders.
I mean,
that's your first 9 games.
7-2 is very possible. 9-0 isn't the most insane thing that's ever fallen out of my mouth.
It's. You think there's going to be a blip in like if we're picking these games now, you think they'll beat the Colts. Cowboys at home, but given Dallas's run defense right now,
right, and their O-line's actually a problem too.
Yeah,
like they got after Dak, and
at the Raiders, I know traditionally that's been a problem to go to the Raiders. When they were in Vegas or when they were in when they were in Oakland.
Team. I mean,
it hasn't been
Raiders,
a problem beating.
Washington.
I've seen them beat the Raiders on the road in Los Angeles when they were the Los Angeles Raiders, and I've seen them win in Vegas last year. That was an Oakland problem more than anything.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, that venue and
they've won in L.A. They have trouble winning in other places on the West Coast.
Gotcha.
They didn't have any trouble beating the Raiders last year in Vegas.
So let me do this for you. Like those 9 games, and then the bye's right after that, right?
And you get the bye, yeah.
I know this isn't offered in Vegas right now, but if I said the Steelers over/under win total for the 9 games,
the bye is actually right before the Commanders game.
Okay. Well, anyways, we'll still do the first 9 before we get into the division. If I set it at 7, you'd go over because 8 is more likely than 6. If I set it at 7.5, I don't know that I could get enough action on both sides of it.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Right. That's pretty nice.
And if you have
if
6
you're
or
7.5 and 1.5 at the first 9, that's pretty good.
And we've all talked about ad nauseum of how they finish.
Yeah.
But if you got 7, let's say you're at 7, you went 7-2 in those first 9 games, you're in really good shape.
Because you're not going to go 0-6 in the division.
No.
I'm convinced of that.
The Browns are a mess right now.
Watt, Hayward, Pickens, Minka could be hurt, and you're not going to go 0-6 in the division. It's just Tomlin's not going to be hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, like they're going to win division games.
Yeah.
And the Browns might be a disaster by then. It might be full-on revolt time.
Yeah. They may have fired the coach by then,
I mean, things aren't going well.
The guy who was the coach of the year last year, maybe out the door.
I mean, the Bengals could be on a 10-game winning streak by then, too. And
right.
look like the best team we've ever seen. But they're not going to go 0-6 in the division. I'll bet everything I own on that.
That's a good point to bring up. So just looking at what Cincinnati has, and I know
they're about to get hot.
Their schedule, their schedule was much easier here. So they get the Commanders tonight. Mm-hmm. Then they're at the Panthers, although all of a sudden that looks a little different now.
Looks a little different. But...
a little Andy Dalton revenge game.
Mm-hmm. It looks like Higgins is back, and Chase has probably knocked the rust off. And
Then they get the Ravens at home.
Pivotal game for the Ravens in particular because their next couple are hard.
At the Giants, at the Browns, Eagles at home, Raiders at home, at the Ravens, at the Chargers, I should say. Then they get the Steelers, at the Cowboys, at the Titans, Browns at home, Broncos at home, and at the Steelers. So that schedule, I think, sets up well for them to.
I like them to be one
track.
of the 7 teams.
Yeah.
I mean, at a minimal. Maybe we'll be like, tomorrow we'll be back here, like, Bengals lost last night. Oh, my gosh. They're 0-3. They're doomed. That could happen.
I have a tough time seeing that tonight
Me
against
too.
Commanders.
I have a hunch that if we went through that schedule tomorrow at this time, I would say they're favored in 80% of those games.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the Chargers. And, there's a lot of teams there that look very beatable if the Bengals are playing like we think the Bengals can play.
Yeah. The Ravens still have.
Ravens could end up 1-4.
They could. They get the Bills next week. Now, it's in Baltimore, but it's a night game.
You think they're a dog at home to the Bills? I think
They'll probably be favored. They were favored in Dallas.
Bills, I guess, have a short week.
If the Bills blow out the Jaguars tonight.
Short week on the road in Baltimore. Bills are a better team, though.
Yeah, definitely.
They're the better team.
Yeah, they're the more complete team right now. I don't know how Baltimore's going to block their pass rush.
No, that's a problem.
Right. It's going to be a big problem.
Yeah.
Then they're at the Bengals.
I feel like that's a game they need to win.
Commanders at home. At the Buccaneers. With their pass defense, that won't be.
No, that's not a walk in the park.
And we'll see. At that point, do they get Vita Vea back? Is Elijah Cansey and Winfield?
Right.
If I'd have known those 3 guys were out yesterday for Tampa Bay.
Yeah. No, I like the Bucs in that game too.
Yeah.
Underestimated Denver too.
At the Browns, Broncos at home, Bengals at home, at the Steelers, at the Chargers, Eagles at home, at the Giants, Steelers at home, at the Texans, and then the Browns at home.
The last 6 weeks or so aren't.
They don't have any cakewalk.
And the next couple games are real tough.
If they get out, they're gonna have to steal some games that
they're pretty. I mean, if by chance that game would have got away from them yesterday, which it was trending to,
if it lasted another 3 minutes,
right, we might be like, I don't know if the Ravens are going to play us.
Yeah,
I mean, even as soft as the AFC looks, all of a sudden.
So, and then you look at Cleveland's schedule. I think Cleveland's in deep trouble.
I do too. I think they fear. I think they could lose the locker room. I don't know how bad it is, but Garrett's injured.
Yeah, he's hurt, and so is their entire offensive line.
Right.
And they got to go play the Raiders this week.
They can't run the ball at all.
And the head coach is challenging the Raiders' manhood at this point.
I assume they're favored in Vegas this week, but it might be like pick'em game or 1.5.
Yeah, they've scored
won't be much.
They've scored 17, 18, and 15 points.
And the quarterback's getting killed. My concern again is just the locker rooms. How do you go to Myles Garrett and say, we're going to just keep rolling with Deshaun the way he's playing? That's when things go.
The best
awry.
thing for them is that their next 3 games are on the road.
I guess that probably is good.
Because the home fans are not being. It's gotten pretty bad.
Unless they play defense like they did last year on the road.
So here's what they got. At the Raiders, at the Commanders, at the Eagles. They're not beating the Eagles in Philadelphia.
I don't like
third out of 3 road games? No way.
3 road games in a row is always
That's
good.
rough. Yeah. So if they don't beat the Raiders this week, you're looking at maybe a 2-4 start.
So is the short answer to the question, this week's game against the Raiders is a loser-leave town match?
Pretty much.
I mean, whoever loses that one's probably not going to the playoffs.
Because after the Eagles game, then they host the Bengals, then they host the Ravens, then they host the Chargers.
I would take the Chargers over them right now, assuming Herbert's
Ravens and the Chargers. Neither one of us think they're a super. We don't think they're a playoff contender.
Yeah, but they got things buttoned up.
But they're a physical matchup.
Yes, when you mentioned the Ravens play, I'm like, that's not going to be fun.
No,
I mean the coaching staffs know each other unbelievably well. They're brothers, and the coordinator they stole from Dobbins, and I mean that's going to be a close game no matter.
It's going to be the Spider-Man, meme again.
Right, that's going to be Steelers Ravens.
Yeah. After the Chargers game, the Browns have to go to New Orleans, which is never fun.
No, they're a dog there for sure.
Then they come to Pittsburgh.
Dog.
At the Broncos.
Maybe not as easy as you think.
Yeah.
Broncos' defensive front's pretty good.
Then they get at Pittsburgh. Then they have the Chiefs at home, at the Bengals, Dolphins at home. Maybe Tua's back by then.
It could be. That's not crazy.
And then at the Ravens.
Well, that 3-game stretch was what? Steelers, Bengals,
I'm
Chiefs.
looking at the Browns might win 5 games this
I was
year.
going to say 6-11 might be ambitious.
Yeah.
And I know that I have said a lot of dumb things in September over my career trying to predict seasons, but I don't think Deshaun Watson all of a sudden turns into a good player.
No.
I mean, and the offense to me was worrisome.
So at 3-0, I feel pretty good about the Steelers' chances at this point. Now things could go bad.
Oh yeah.
But I felt good about them from the beginning of I thought they were a 10-win team when the season started.
We were in on the over on
that
kind of stuff. Yeah, and we both picked them to go to the playoffs.
Wasn't buying any of this is Tomlin's first losing season stuff, none of that. Because, again, the depth of this team, the depth of this roster wasn't going to allow for that.
And they've lost guys, but they're also getting guys back that they haven't had to utilize yet. I think they have a couple winnable games, a handful of winnable games before you even see the division.
Because that defense is going to travel. That running game is going to travel.
7-2, you're in.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
You'd have to completely fall apart.
Then you're talking about can you win the division?
Can you get the number 1 seed?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what you're getting into that conversation.
You're getting that conversation, right? What if Stroud's hurt or something like that?
Now all of a sudden, when you're playing Kansas City on Christmas Eve, maybe you're playing for the number 1 seed in the AFC.
Mm-hmm. No, I don't think that's
because you'd have to. You win that game, you have a tiebreaker.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a plausible story to write.
Yeah.
From where they're
getting a long way down the road here, of course. Understandably.
But if the offense keeps taking steps, baby steps,
and the defense keeps playing the way it is,
right?
It's the best defense in the league.
And if Watt stays healthy, I mean, catastrophic things don't happen.
Yeah.
Right. No, they're really in a good spot.
We'll get to more of where that defense ranks in the league and things of that nature when we come back. We'll take a look at the DVOA rankings coming out of this week.
Okay.
We'll do that when we return. He is Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. And welcome back. I'm Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And this is The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network. And if you like The Drive, well, you can follow along. You can download the Steelers mobile app and listen to the show on there. You can watch us on YouTube as well, where we do this show from 4 to 6, Monday through Friday, every day. During the season, and follow it through to the off season as well. We do a lot of off season shows.
Oh yeah,
draft coverage like crazy.
Free agency stuff we'll break down.
Absolutely,
all kinds of.
Matt and I are
stuff.
at the combine. We go to the owners' meetings.
Yep.
I go to the Senior Bowl. All that stuff. So
maybe I'll join you this year. I've said that 2 years in a row, but I don't know why I haven't gone down, but I should.
We could do some shows down there.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. Anyways, so looking here at the FTN Fantasy DVOA rankings.
Okay.
The Steelers have moved up to number 6. In the DVOA.
Still 4 teams to play,
yeah.
But, they adjust them on the fly.
So New Orleans still number 1.
Okay. That wasn't a terrible loss by New Orleans. It's a quality opponent, and they didn't put a lot of points up. They had some O-line injuries, too.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're, going away.
Seattle number 2.
3-0. I mean, their defense is, I bet, pretty high on that list.
It is number 1, actually.
Wow, I didn't expect
No, I'm sorry, they're number 2. Minnesota is number 1.
Okay.
Yeah, they're 26 on special teams. That's kind of The offense, though, is 5th. So
if you're 2-5, that's not too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Minnesota 3.
Agreed. I don't think that's crazy.
Baltimore 4.
Wow,
they still love Baltimore.
1 and 2. Played the Chiefs tough, played the Raiders tough, but lost them both. I wonder how much of that. They were number 1 in DVOA last year, so I wonder if there's some carryover from preseason predictions.
There's got to be some of that because
there has to be.
I mean,
they have not been a top 5 team this year.
No, offensively, they're number 1 in the league.
That's a real stretch.
That's a real stretch.
There isn't dominant offenses right now.
No,
but that's a real stretch.
11th on defense, which is more.
Yeah, I can buy that.
25th on special teams. Justin Tucker's a problem.
Yeah, the way kicking's going in the league, he went from the best to the 15th.
By the end of this season, he may no longer be the number 1 kicker all time in accuracy.
This sounds like
he's missed
blasphemy.
3 kicks in 3 weeks.
Yeah, this sounds like blasphemy, but they may have to have the conversation of, is he a cap casualty?
that would probably be after the season.
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
is it time to move on from him? We can't have one of the highest priced kickers in the league who's the 15th best guy.
Yeah.
Despite his career.
If that now.
Right.
He can't make anything long. He's missed all of his attempts over 50.
Well, the whole league's making everything
And I think he missed one yesterday, or I think he shanked one from 48 yards. He pulled it.
Did he?
Yeah, he went wide on that one.
It might be over for him.
Buffalo right now is number 5.
I probably have them a little higher, but maybe they will
could
be
move
after
up tonight. Yeah. And then the Steelers at 6.
I don't think that's bonkers. You know, when we talk like power ranks tomorrow and all those things, there's a lot of teams that are 2-win that have a case for over the Steelers.
Sure.
Or even the Niners at 1 and 2.
Like, I'm not down on Detroit yet.
No, I would have them ahead of the Steelers.
Yeah.
Right. Like Green Bay surviving and being 2-1.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Knowing their circumstances. That's a good team. You know, I mean, Minnesota, Seattle. How would you power rank Minnesota, Seattle, and the Steelers? All 3-0. No one quite saw it coming.
I mean, I'll be honest. I haven't seen Minnesota and Seattle play.
Yeah,
obviously, I've seen all 3 Steeler games. I'd have to look more into it.
Mm-hmm.
But
very impressive coaching jobs.
Yeah,
defenses are. I think they're 1 and 2 in DVOA.
I mean, beating Houston was a big win for Minnesota.
Yeah, they have some big wins.
I don't know that Seattle doesn't have a win like that yet.
No, Miami going there and in their state. They beat Denver.
So I'd probably have them 3, and then I'd have to look at Minnesota and Pittsburgh.
Yes, I mean Seattle's other win was overtime in New England.
Yeah.
So right. I mean they're out kicking their coverage, but they're 3.
Yeah,
they're 3.
I think that's definitely the way I would look at it. The Steelers have moved up now 18th in offensive DVOA.
And they had to be very low early.
They're now on the positive side of DVOA.
Okay.
In terms
so
of
now they're an
offensive,
above average offense.
Or actually, I'm sorry, they're minus 0.5.
So they're close. They're nearly average.
Cursor was over top of that, so almost average. But if they can do that with this defense all season long, if you're 18th by the end of the season.
So we said that a lot of that going into the season.
Yeah.
Like I remember.
Now you want more, don't you?
So yeah.
Well, because
I'm greedy.
Last season, when the final 10 games, when they averaged 145 rushing yards per game, they slowly climbed the ladder in DVOA to where they finished, I believe, 9th in offensive.
A lot higher
DVOA.
than our listeners might think for the whole season.
For the season,
right?
Because running the ball
and controlling the clock and not making mistakes.
Yeah,
interceptions are bad for DVOA. Things like that, mistakes. So before the season, we often said, let's say this is a top 8 defense in DVOA and the 20th offense. And we're both like, I'd take that. That sounds like a playoff team. That'd be hard to beat. I want more than that now. Top 8's not good enough on defense now.
Well, they're 4th in defense right now.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like for the year, if you just told me they're going to be top 8, I'm like, I'm going fish. They may be 1.
They should be 1.
2, right?
Yeah, I think when it's all said and done, they will be number 1.
I think they're going up.
This one might surprise people. They're 8th on special teams. That's taking your coverage, your kicking, everything, your returns into account.
Well, they don't miss kicks. The punting's been a plus.
Yeah.
I mean,
the coverage has been good.
And Austin's had a couple returns.
Austin's been good with returns. We haven't gotten to see them return any kicks yet because everybody's just kicking it out. That's not going to put...
Have they had 0 returns?
They've had 1. That was a squib kick to Warren.
Oh, right. Okay.
Outside of that, nobody's kicking to their guys because Cordell Patterson and Jalen Warren's, I don't want to kick to him either.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to hold up all season long. At some point, the weather's going to turn, and teams aren't going to be able to simply kick the ball into the end zone.
Yeah, I think that day's coming. Killebrew will balk upon at some point.
He's come close a couple. They've actually come really close in the first 3 games. They've been close.
They've had a couple special teams penalties, but everyone always does.
Yeah, especially early in the season.
Yeah.
By the way, 3 penalties yesterday.
Yep, from being like the most penalized team in the league, that's changing quickly too.
And I went and I looked to see what Blakeman's crew called. They did the 49ers Rams game yesterday, and I know this because I was listening to the broadcast on my way home yesterday after the game, and on one play, Blakeman's crew threw against the 49ers in the fourth quarter, 3 separate flags.
Not like we're going to hold
it was
that
it was an illegal hands to the
like
face.
That.
There was an illegal hands to the face. There was a It was something else that was minor, and then a pass interference down the field. And, of course, the Rams took the pass interference. That set up the game-winning touchdown.
Wow. Like, come on,
or the game-winning field goal, I should say. They called
it should be, investigated.
Almost 200 yards of penalties in that game again.
200 yards of penalties in that game.
Every freaking week with that crew.
We got to pay more attention to who they're in charge of.
I always do.
Because it really changes things or evens things. You know, again, I do this podcast with Brian Peacock, who's a Niner guy. He's like, we were the better team.
But when you're getting over 100 yards and penalties called against you.
We didn't even bring up the penalties in our quick conversation, but it was like.
You might want to mention that. Hey, make sure you keep an eye on Clete Blakeman's crew. I'm going to watch them the rest of the year.
Yeah, I just want to see who they have.
They are awful. Nobody's paying money to see them.
I might just pick the underdog in Blakeman game.
Yeah.
Because it evens the playing field.
It certainly makes it slogs the game down.
It does.
There's no doubt about that.
So real quick, I dug this up just as kind of a teaser for Indy stuff. So the Niners are unbelievable right now with time possession. They're 35-38. But the Steelers are second already at 33-55, which is a big number.
Yeah.
Dead Colts. They're at 24-36.
Because the quarterback doesn't complete passes. He can't make layups.
They don't run plays. I mean, they're at the bottom of the league in plays. They're at the bottom of the league in time possession. I mean, if Steelers hold the ball for 35, 36 minutes in Indy, it won't be close in the second half.
It's going to be.
It'll look like the second half the other day.
It's going to be like the Python just squeezing the life out of
exactly.
the opposing team.
Yep.
Absolutely. Matt, that's going to do it for the show today.
Good stuff, man.
Absolutely. We'll be back again tomorrow. Break down the Mike Tomlin press conference. Let you know of any news that happens in that. More analysis. We'll start getting into the Indianapolis Colts a little bit more. We'll talk about the Monday night games. There's two of them this week, and
they nice to see the Bengals lose.
They involved, three actually AFC teams. So we'll see what happens out of that. But for my partner Matt Williamson, for Justin Miller here on site, and we'd like to offer a happy birthday to Tyler Vittmeyer, who keeps us on the video
doing a bang-up
here.
job.
Absolutely. I'm Dale Lolley. We appreciate you listening to this edition of The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network.
Steelers football happens here. The Pittsburgh Steelers Audio Network.